Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens. It's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite. Voices like the park fans dripped in jerseys. Legacy bold, the Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams. It's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on our channels and on X, and our 7-3 New York Mets, our 5-game winning streak New York Mets are looking to take another series from the Marlins and to get their 6th win in a row. And we're going to talk all about yesterday's game and, of course, previewing today's game, the pitching matchup, lineup, and all that other stuff. Chris, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well. The New York Mets got another hard-fought victory yesterday, live for the post game. Appreciate the chat showing out. The Mets are playing solid baseball right now, especially on the pitching side, but the offense did just enough to come through. I'm sure we'll talk about it here in just a second, but I'm ready. The game was pushed up for 3 hours, pushed up 3 hours, I should say, because of the weather. And you know what? I kind of like day baseball games anyways. It fits better into my schedule. So let's have a day. Let's get 6 in a row. I love it.
Absolutely. And, day games are almost so much better schedule-wise. So much better. But, again, listen, guys, the pitching has been there, right? I've complained about the starting pitching, going with length, understandable. But when they have been on the mound, they've been very good. They limit the damage with the innings they pitch. Now, the bullpen is at elite level at this point. I mean, outstanding once again. Even Danny Young joined the party for the bullpen and took care of a solid inning. And we all know about Buto, as everybody's starting to call him now, and Ryan Stanek. That might have been, Chris, the best Ryan Stanek stuff I've seen since he's been a New York Met. I mean, that slider was, it looked like a wiffle ball. It was amazing how good it was. And listen, the pitching has been outstanding. The offense still has a lot of work to do. As we've seen a couple of guys that we wanted to see get a little bit going, especially Juan Soto, that looking like he's getting back to himself again, which is a good sign as well. I mean, I believe they were 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. I think they were like 1 for 14 with men on base. So it's not pretty, but they're still finding ways to win, Chris, and that is a great sign for a good team. And that's where we're going to start when it comes to the overall team, right? They're 7-3 despite the lack of offense that this team is providing. I mean, there's no room for error here for any pitcher, from the starting pitcher for the bullpen. And right now, it's the pitching that's been, holding up the lineup basically for the entire season. I mean, the lineup really showed out, 1 or 2 times out of these first 10 games of the season, Chris. Right now, it's all about the pitching.
Yeah, I mean, the pitching definitely is carrying the offense just a little bit, but it's got to be a really good sign for this lineup as Pete Alonso is continuing to stay hot. And Francisco Lindor also, who led off the ball game yesterday and actually collected 3 hits. Congratulations, by the way. I cannot believe I went the entire post game last night without congratulating Francisco Lindor on his 1500th hit in his career. And there's a lot more years in the New York Mets uniform for, left for him to collect even more base hits and approach 2,000 plus. So congratulations to him. But, he's slowly starting to get into a rhythm. He's got a hit streak going on, 3 hits. One was a beautifully placed bunt, and even Juan Soto was kind of reaching back a little bit and just trying to take what the defense was giving him and showing bunt. And sometimes, that's what good players do. If they are shifting as much as they can shift within the rules to try to play you in a certain spot, you take what they give you. And I love to see that out of the top 2 guys, especially Lindor collecting a base hit. But the top 3 accounted for 7 of yesterday's 9 hits. And then the other 2 hits came from the 7th spot guy and Tyrone Taylor coming through with that insurance run as well in the 8th inning, which was much needed for Ryan Stanley to go out there and do his thing. I'm liking the at-bats that I'm seeing. And also Mark Vientos had a couple of good at-bats as well. 3 walks on the day, and he smoked the baseball that he got robbed on by Griffin Conine making a dive and catch in left field. So it's good to see that the top 5 guys outside of Brandon Nimmo, who left an army out there on the base paths yesterday with his 0 for 4. And a lot of those at-bats, I believe maybe all of those at-bats came with runners in scoring position, actually, and he could not come through. And, he's back in the cleanup spot as well. It's pretty much the same exact lineup, but you have Starling Marte here and Brett Beatty making the starts, respectively, in the 6th and 8th spots in the lineup. But yeah, I think the offense, at the very minimum, the top 3 are getting going. And if you're having, better at-bats by Lindor, Juan Soto's kind of, coming back around, even though he's getting on base, we're seeing him take better swings as well, collecting a couple of base hits, I believe, yesterday. And also Mark Vientos, the guy that was off to an abysmal start with the bat. I like the direction at least, even though they didn't, produce with the runners in scoring position. They were 1 for 10. Like you said, Tyrone Taylor was the only guy that got it done with runners in scoring position. That can definitely get better, but the type of at bats and the approach is what I like. But the pitching has been phenomenal, man. I mean, Kodai Senga didn't really have his best stuff. The command was kind of iffy, especially with the ghost fork. He was kind of, leaving it down because, again, that's his bread and butter. It looks like a strike and then it dips below the zone at the very last minute. And the Marlins made a hell of an adjustment on him from the first start out in Miami, where he collected 8 strikeouts, and early and often that they were recognizing the ghost fork pitch out of his hand and laying off of it, which made things harder for Kodai Senga. He had to utilize, his fastball and the slider a lot more often than he would have wanted to. But the pitching is up to the task. I'm gonna keep saying it. When the weather warms up, I know that this is a terrible excuse. I understand it, but I really do think that some guys are still trying to get in the groove. But the biggest thing is maybe the timing is a little bit off for some of these guys, especially Brandon Nimmo. The one thing that I did notice, and I talked about it on the post-game stream last night, after the conclusion of the game, was that I noticed between the first and second at bat and Brandon Nimmo's last at bat that he was being a little bit more open in his stance to start off with. And I told everybody, changes don't necessarily matter in terms of the actual mechanics, but it has everything to do with trying to get on time with the pitch. Right? It helps him kind of stay locked in and time up the pitcher a little bit more. And maybe he just feels like he's not on time with some of these pitches because he does look a little jumpy at the plate at the end of the day. He's expanding his zone a little bit more than we're accustomed to seeing from Brandon Nimmo throughout his career. So maybe it's a timing issue. That's something that I would have to guess with him going a little bit more open. But all in all, can't complain in terms of 5 wins in a row, looking to make it 6 today. And I think this offense is going to come through. I think what I've seen from Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and now Vientos kind of getting things rolling. And I'm not sure if you actually tuned into the post game yesterday. I know that you're a little bit busy, but and also in the broadcast, they talked about the discrepancy of playing time between Jose Siri and Tyrone Taylor. Gary was kind of explaining that and what could be going on in the mind of, Carlos Mendoza, which made perfect sense to me in terms of Tyrone Taylor is a, professional, right? He is a true pro's pro. He doesn't play within 5 days. He's going to go out there and not miss a beat, and Carlos Mendoza knows that. He doesn't know if he can get the same production with multiple days in between from Jose Siri just yet. So it seems like that's the decision and what's kind of being factored into that platoon at center field. So I thought that was very interesting in terms of what Gary was actually saying on the broadcast, because I 100% wholeheartedly agreed with it. But yeah, the thing is that the Mets are 7-3, and they still haven't clicked on all cylinders yet, right? The offense hasn't fully clicked. And that is a dangerous sign to come for the opposition when the Mets finally do get going. Now, I mentioned yesterday in the postgame as well, Rob, that the pitching is due for some regression. I think we all know that. The pace that they're on right now is unsustainable. It'd be nice if it was sustainable, but I don't think it is, right? They lead the MLB in total team pitching ERA. But as that regression starts to hit, whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's next week, next month, that's the point where we cannot make any more excuses for the offense. It hasn't happened just yet, but that's something that I'm definitely watching out for.
Yeah, absolutely. The pitching has been outstanding, and you know, with the offense again, when 7 of your 9 hits come from the top 3 guys in your lineup, and listen, that's how you win ball games. Like let's be honest about that. And I want to give a big bunch of credit to Carlos Mendoza because it was 1-0 for the majority of the game. In the 8th inning, he pinch ran Jose Siri, Mark Vientos for Jose Siri, and they might have not scored that second run. I know it didn't matter at the end of the day because they still didn't give up any runs, but that was a huge insurance run. And I don't know if Vientos would have made it home if he was on base.
Chance.
And yeah,
No
exactly.
chance.
And the pinch run Jose Siri. So that's another smart managerial gut decision. There is no analytics telling you to take one of your top 5, top 6 hitters in your lineup out of the lineup in a 1-0 ball game. You wouldn't do that because guess who played third base? Brett Beatty. So, you know, that wasn't exciting for anybody. You kind of lose your, you know, hurt your defense a little bit, but it felt like Mendoza felt like they needed that extra run, and putting Siri on base to pinch run for Vientos was an excellent move. That was a clear gut decision. And just little things like that is why you win ball games. And for anybody who says that the manager is not important, I'm sorry. There's a handful of games that Mendoza has made decisions that probably some of us didn't agree with that worked out. And going by his gut, a little bit of numbers and everything in between, it's just the decisions he's been making. And you know what? Mendoza, it really doesn't matter who he brings in from the bullpen. It doesn't matter. They all do well. They all do. It's completely amazing. Now, like you just said, Chris, the pitching is probably not going to be at this level and be sustainable. This starting staff has to go a little bit deeper, and it starts with Clay Holmes today. Could we see him get through the 5th inning? Can he give me that? Because has he pitched bad in his first 2? No. But the problem has been is that at some point, you need your big guys in your rotation, and make no mistake about it, Clay Holmes is one of your big guys in your rotation. You got to get a little bit of length. You can't get 4 to 5 innings every single day from your bullpen and expect elite stuff and zeros from your bullpen every single time. Now, Mendoza has done a great job using guys sporadically, and there's no guy in this bullpen that has made 4 outings or more. It's been 4 outings or less. So he's did a great job with using everybody. But again, like you said, Chris, eventually it's going to take a step back a little bit. And yeah, we're going to count on the offense to score some runs here. But the starting pitching, even though they've been good, the innings is just not there yet. And again, I'm not asking for 7, 8 innings. Get through 5 innings. Occasionally get through 6. When you have 10 starts, 10 games so far, and one guy's gotten through a 6th inning, it's not going to hurt you now, but it might hurt you a little bit later on. And again, we're only 2 weeks into the season. But overall, man, it's so much fun right now. I mean, every game now we expect to win. I mean, everybody feels confident. Does anybody feel like we're ever going to lose a game? Like, that's the way we feel. We didn't feel that last year for a while, and it's a great sign. And the one guy in the lineup, Chris, Brandon Nimmo, I see Ken talking about, others talking about it as well, and you brought it up. Brandon Nimmo's, I know he opened up, and I saw that too in his last couple of at-bats. He did open up a little bit, and that's a good sign, but I still think it's the approach. Like, I think if it wasn't his first bat, it was his second at-bat, where the over swinging on pitches is just amazing to me. Like, that's not Brandon Nimmo. And I hate to see him batting .230 just to hit a couple of more home runs. I mean, Nimmo's not a 25-plus home run guy. And that's what's frustrating, because Nimmo, in this cleanup spot is kind of useless, to be quite honest with you. And I know they're not moving Lindor, they're not moving Soto to put Nimmo there, but somehow, some way, they got to go back to what Nimmo is great at. Like, wouldn't you want to get on for Vientos, who's looking that he's starting to swing a better bat, hasn't had the production and the execution as of yet, but getting 3 walks, seeing the pitches more, working counts more. Brandon Nimmo in that spot, I don't expect him to be a run producer, right? Pete Alonso's going to take care of that business when Lindor and Soto get on. Nimmo's got to get on for the next 2 guys behind him, which is usually Vientos and one of the DHs. I just don't like the approach still. I know he tried to change up, a little bit more of an open stance. I don't know if that changes his approach with his launch angle swing and just over swinging. But yesterday, he could have drove a couple of pitches to left field, and he's pulling off on everything. And that's concerning to me, because that's not the Brandon Nimmo that everybody fell in love with, and why the Mets gave him that big contract, because it's not just, they think he can hit for power. It was because of the on base, because when you needed that hit, there was nobody better than Brandon Nimmo. Now it's either home run or bust for Brandon Nimmo, and that's the concerning part with Nimmo.
Yeah, it does seem like he's pulling off a little bit, to your credit in what you just said, 100%. Nimmo at his peak is a gap-to-gap hitter, as is everybody, especially in that top 5 when they're really rolling. I mean, the prime example is, Pete Alonso and what he was trying to do last season off of that down-and-out breaking ball versus what he's doing now, shooting baseballs the opposite way, and he's finding immediate success and actually is the leader for the New York Mets in pretty much every single offensive statistic. So I'd like to see Brandon Nimmo make that kind of adjustment as well. He's expanding the zone. And also, just in general, this isn't just limited to Brandon Nimmo, but there was a handful of pitches from the starter yesterday for the Marlins, Valente Beozo, where he hung. And he's not a hard thrower at all. He does not throw the baseball hard. He throws 90, 91 with the fastball, and then he throws curveballs and I guess a slider maybe. But a lot of the curveballs that he threw, I saw so many that were hanging, and the Mets simply just missed the pitch. I mean, they fouled it back. Those are mistakes that should be, going for doubles and home runs, and they're fouling the pitches back, which also makes me think, right? It kind of goes back into that timing aspect. Maybe the timing is just completely off, right? So that's something that I think is going to get better as time goes on, because at the peak of this offense and what they can contribute this season, I envision a scenario where they're not missing those mistake pitches, right? If they get a hanger right over the heart of the plate, which they did multiple times yesterday, they're not going to miss it. Yeah. And so I really do think it's just some early season, I guess, frustrations and mishaps with some of these swings. But I agree with Brandon Nimmo specifically that he needs to stop pulling off the baseball, because it does look like that, and it does look like that's what he's doing to the naked eye. Another thing that I wanted to point out too, as we go back to that Jose Siri discussion for him pinch running and coming around on that Tyrone Taylor shallow single up the middle, I just watched a replay from the SNY Mets account on X, and they showed the angle of Siri coming around to score, obviously having to slide, and the angle is looking at the third base coach as if the third base coach was looking home to see Jose Siri going to home plate. If you noticed something, and if you don't follow me on X, I quote tweeted it, and Acuna was on deck. Anytime a guy is coming around and you're the on deck hitter, a guy is coming around in a close play at home plate, you need to be there at home plate, anywhere in the vicinity, telling him to either get down or stand up if he has enough time not to slide, and also where to slide, where the throw is coming in. Should he slide, to the infield part of the base path, or the outside for like a little bit of a swoop tag right over home plate? And Acuna was just dazed and just standing there completely focused on his next at bat, and he didn't even move when Jose Siri was coming in to score. So that's something that I'm also like, these guys got to be in the game. And I understand Acuna is a young player. That's something that he's going to learn from, but that's something that if it was a closer play, let's say if it was not Jose Siri rounding that bag, if he didn't have the Jose Siri speed and it's more of a bang bang play, again, credit to Jose Siri for being as quick as he is on his feet. If that's Mark Vientos, that can be the difference in that insurance run or not.
Yep.
And so that's something that I wanted to point out because I had no idea. I didn't watch that angle until today, and that kind of frustrated me just a little bit. So
Yeah, and you know what? That's what Lindor was talking about with Luis Angel Acuna. That's what the organization seems to be an issue with Luis Angel Acuna. And don't think for a second that Brett Beatty's the one going to be sent down when Jeff McNeil comes back, because there are signs that we've seen already. The lackadaisical play for the double play in Houston that he threw it away. He had a rush to throw because he was lazy getting to second base. And then, again, it might not mean anything because it didn't actually affect the play, but you're right. You're 100% right, Chris. That is frustrating. And I think that's where the Mets see where he's like, it's a lack of focus. Like, you can worry about your at-bat. You had all prior at-bat to worry about your at-bat, when you're on the on-deck circle. So that's the issue that I think the Mets are concerned about, and what Lindor talked about in spring training. That's why he was basically at like 0 hour finally put on the roster, because there's concerns about Luis Angel Acuna and his, I'm not going to say effort because that much fair, but I'm going to put focus as the key word. And that's a problem for a guy who a lot of fans want to be playing every single day. But again, we got to go back to the fact that he's got to earn it. He's got to prove that he can be focused when need be. That's why he's not a good candidate coming off the bench, because he probably isn't focused. He's probably just, hanging out on the bench, not doing what he should be doing, or being ready to get called upon. That's why I still believe that at the end of the day, he might be the one going down, even if Beatty still sucks. I just completely feel like that, because I still feel like they believe that Beatty can come off the bench, even though Acuna can come off defensively. Acuna is not here for his defense, just for his defense. If he's going to be a utility defensive guy and a defensive replacement late in games, you could have signed Jose Iglesias for that. You don't need Luis Angel Acuna for that. You could have get a veteran utility guy. So I 100% agree with you. I was upset at that when I saw the same angle you saw, and I was like, come on, man. Like, not only that, like, you're also trying to protect the runner, because if the catcher goes down on his knee and he's just going to slide straight into home plate, I mean, you can get a runner hurt by not helping your runner slide to the left, slide to the right, stand up, something like that. But yeah, you're 100% right. That's a huge problem. And again, it didn't affect the play, but it could have. And yeah, I can assure you, somebody on that bench saw that and realized that. And I guarantee you got a talking to, and I guarantee you that's why he's not playing today.
I don't know if that's why he's not playing today, but it could be a very big reason as to why that is as well. I mean, yeah, that's what coaches' jobs, right? That's not the manager who's focused on everything else. That's what they're in charge of. Like, that's what a bench coach probably is in charge of making sure that, they're watching out for those subtle little things that can go over a lot of, fans' heads. So I agree with that. But on the flip side of the conversation, I mean, Brett Beatty just also has to be better as well, now that we're talking about today's game. And also the point that you mentioned about who goes down when McNeil gets back, because we have great news about Francisco Alvarez and Jeff McNeil. Alvarez is starting his rehab assignment tomorrow, per multiple reporters that cover the New York Mets. And also Jeff McNeil is traveling down to Florida, and he's today after the game, I believe, and he's going to be starting his rehab assignment later this week. So those guys are well on their way to being back soon. And this decision is going to need to be made really, I guess not rather quickly, but it's going to be a tough decision to make is what I'm trying to say. And I was mentioning it yesterday. If we see a reduction in Jose Siri's role, right? Let's say Tyrone Taylor, because we hadn't seen up until yesterday, we hadn't seen Tyrone Taylor in a couple days. And given the explanation that the booth gave us, if we start to see a little bit of reduction in the Jose Siri role, then he fits the mold perfectly to be that pinch runner and defensive substitution late in the ball game. And that is basically what Acuna would be when Jeff McNeil gets back. So that would be his role. So Jose Siri would fit that bill, and then you just probably keep Beatty on the roster and have Acuna move back down to AAA. So that's the way I see that. But I'm just very encouraged by the news of Francisco Alvarez coming back. I mean, how many days in a row? This is what, Hayden Sanger's third or fourth start in a row. Luis Torrens still dealing with that contused forearm. You know, I don't know what the split time is going to look like when Alvarez gets back between him and Torrens when Torrens gets healthy. Torrens has definitely earned himself some playing time in kind of a split role. Whereas I would be a little bit more reluctant. I was a little bit more reluctant to say so as the season started. I was like, Francisco Alvarez comes back. That's his job. But yeah, I mean, Torrens is undeniable right now, defensively and offensively. It's like this guy's getting it done. And it's just hard to make the case against that. So we'll see. And with the second base production that the Mets have been getting so far between Beatty and Acuna at the plate, Beatty just simply can't lift the baseball to save his life. And that's something that we've seen time and time again with him at the major league level. And as much as we've talked about Jeff McNeil and kind of not being happy with Jeff McNeil sometimes, it's kind of going to be refreshing when Jeff McNeil gets back, because maybe, just maybe, we could get some sort of offensive production from him. So we'll see how that plays out. But good news nonetheless.
At the very least, at least Jeff McNeil looks like he cares when he doesn't, get a hit. Beatty and Acuna just look like, they're swinging and then they go back to the bench and they're like with their head down. At least McNeil has some like emotion at the very least. Again, Beatty and Acuna are making Met fans want Jeff McNeil back. Like that's how bad they've been. When you got 4 hits in almost 30 combined at bats, that's not good at all. Like, it's really not. Like, second base is a no-show. It sucks, but it's a fact. Yeah, I don't know, man. At this point, hopefully, I mean, they said, I think there was a report that McNeil's not going to probably come back until the end of April. So they got a couple of more weeks. Somebody's got to step up, because one of these guys are going to be staying on the team. Who is that going to be? Who knows? It depends. And it really does depend, I guess, the mindset of the Mets. Because at this point, if today was the day Jeff McNeil came back, who would get sent down, Chris?
Probably Acuna. Or okay, so if that situation's present, you're saying Alvarez is not back yet, right? Because that also is
yeah, of course, yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's gonna be tough. But again, you take a look at the differences, and let's just talk about this real quick. The differences in Brett Beatty at bats versus Luis Angel Acuna at bats. One is overly aggressive and one is underly aggressive. Brett Beatty seems like he doesn't want to swing the damn bat sometimes, and he gets caught looking multiple times a game. And then Acuna is expanding the zone too much and getting a little bit overzealous and kind of, just swinging at pitches that he shouldn't be swinging at. So it's like, who's going to find that happy medium? Brett Beatty swinging more or Acuna swinging less? Do you give the advantage to one over the other when you're trying to assess the difference of who you would rather have? I'm going to take the guy that's going to swing the bat more often than not, because if you're not lifting the bat off of your shoulder and just looking at strike 3 continuously and getting yourself an 0-2 counts. I mean, who was it in the chat? I believe it was Junior a couple of streams ago that told us, of Brett Beatty's 21, 22 at bats up until that point, he's got himself into 0-2 counts in half of those at bats. That's not sustainable. That's not any way to get yourself out of a slump. And so until that changes for Brett Beatty, I'm going to be inclined to believe that he's going to have less success more often than not by just way of not swinging the bat and not being ready to swing the bat. So, yeah, I don't know. That's something that is also very, you can talk about the comparison of lack of production, but it's coming in 2 different forms between Acuna and Beatty in terms of their approaches at the plate.
Yeah, so what you're saying is put Acuna and Beatty in a blender, mix them up together, and then they'll actually, put up a good at bat. Like that's the medium you're talking about. Like that's the problem.
Essentially, maybe.
Like, it's crazy to me. Like I know the coaches have to be speaking to both of these guys. I think one's the lack of focus, and I think the other one is just too in his head. And I think which way I'm going with both of them is the lack of focus from Acuna with plate discipline and just being ready to play a game and have at bats, and Beatty just completely in his own head. And I think that's the major problem. It's like, when he gets to the minor league, everything clicks and everything turns on. When he gets to the majors, he forgets everything about how to actually hit a baseball at the big league level. So it is amazing to me. I wanted to ask, you brought up Luis Torrens. Sanger has played the last couple of games. They're playing with fire here. Maybe in an emergency situation, Luis Torrens would catch, but because he hasn't been starting, and clearly the forearm is an issue for the last couple of days. I'm surprised they didn't put him on the injured list. Only because just to fill that roster spot with an actual catcher, whoever it might be, whoever they wanted to bring up. Only because Tyrone Taylor is our emergency backup catcher because he did it in high school or a little bit in college. So
fun fact, I didn't even know that.
It's a dangerous game to play. I know that might not be. I know they brought it up on the broadcast yesterday, but it's not talked about enough amongst fans, which I don't expect fans to just be talking about that. But it is concerning because, worst case scenario, if Sanger gets hurt early in this ball game and Torrens can't go, Tyrone Taylor's behind the plate. like that's a little scary. I mean, right. Tyrone Taylor is, badass. Maybe he will be okay. You never know. He just seems like that a baseball player. He's just a baseball player. But I'm surprised they haven't done that yet. Maybe they're just giving it a couple of more days. Maybe on the off day, which is the Thursday, they'll make that roster decision with Torrens if they decide to put Torrens on the IL. But right now, you're working with one catcher.
Yeah, and I don't really know exactly what the situation is because we saw Luis Torrens come into the ball game late and take an at bat, even though I know that that's not what the Mets really wanted to, but they knew that he was going to go out there and catch, even with that contusion in his forearm. I'm like, how ready would he be if he is needed and called upon? Now, Hayden Sanger hasn't been bad. I mean, he's great defensively. We knew that coming in to the season from what he posted in spring training, but we're like, what are we going to get, if anything, production-wise from his bat? And honestly, he's been better than I've expected with the bat, putting together at least more competitive at bats than a guy like Brett Beatty, to be honest, the way that I've been assessing things. So that is at least a plus. But yeah, I don't really know. I mean, you'd have an option like a guy like maybe Jackson Reitz. Is he still in the organization? We saw him in spring training kind of competing for that spot that Hayden Sanger got. I guess long overdue prospect at this point. Kevin Parada, it would be a last minute decision. There's, I guess, not really that many, options at the minor league level for the New York Mets in terms of backup catcher. But yeah, I guess they're stuck in between a rock and a hard place with the timing of it all, especially with Francisco Alvarez ready to return after the rehab assignment, but we just don't know how long that rehab assignment's going to be. And in that case, again, you can't just expect him to come into the game and come into the Mets and, everything's fine and he's going to be catching 9 innings and every day. I mean, that's a hamate bone that he fractured. It's going to be really tough, both with the bat and with his glove hand to do things. I don't know. The catching situation just seems like the Mets can never catch a break, man. As long as time has told itself with the New York Mets, it's just been like a continuous revolving door at the catcher spot. Now, I like Luis Torrens a lot. And so I'm hoping that he is actually going to be finding himself at a point where he's ready without having to go on the injured list. But I agree with you 100%, Rob. If we're talking about Tyrone Taylor potentially being in the ball game, if something happens, to Hayden Sanger, it's bad news. That's bad news. So, but I would think that if they really thought Luis Torrens needed to go on the IL, they would have made that move already. They wouldn't have played around with how important the catching position is. So something tells me that if necessary, Luis Torrens could suit up and get into the ball game if needed. That's what my gut feeling is, but you never know.
Yeah, it is playing with fire a little bit, but again, it's not the most important thing in the world. But if it ever does come up, even in today's game or the next day, I think they're hoping that Torrens will be fine coming, getting back on the road to play the Athletics in Sacramento. Maybe he'll be ready to go. But yeah, to talk about the pitching a little bit, it's time for Clay Holmes to play some big league baseball here and look like a starting pitcher. I don't want 4 in the third, 4 2/3, couple of runs. I don't want to hear it no more. All right, this is his third start. He's not facing a good team. I don't care how cold it is. It's probably going to be harder for the batter to hit a baseball in this weather than anything else. Give me 5 innings. Give me 5 solid innings. I'll take 2 runs. I really would. Just give me a little bit. Give me another inning than what you've been giving. I want to see a little bit more. You should with his stuff. And Chris, I know you're big on pitches and what guys throw. Why hasn't Clay Holmes used that kick change enough? His first 2 starts, that's the lowest pitch amount of pitches he's thrown in any 2 games so far is his kick change. He doesn't throw it enough. Why has he gone away from that pitch that was so effective in spring training? And he's only using his arsenal he's used when he was in the bullpen with the Yankees. And that's concerning to me because the pitch that he learned was because he was becoming a starter and needed that extra pitch. But he's using it very sparingly, and I think that's the reason why he's having trouble putting guys away, because he hasn't gone into the past the 5th inning because he's getting into these longer counts. They're working the at bats. He doesn't have that put away pitch, and that kick change was the put away pitch that he had in spring training. So I'm trying to figure out why he has not thrown it. I don't know if he doesn't feel comfortable coming out of the bullpen before a game with it, but at least throw it every now and then, or at least enough where a batter has to guess when he's at the plate. Hey, he might throw that pitch on a 2-2 count, on a 1-2 count to put him away. I just don't understand why he's not throwing it enough. And I feel like he's throwing just the arsenal he has that he'd been throwing that when he was in the bullpen. And that's not good enough when you see a pitcher a second, third time through the order.
So I'm looking at the Savant page right now, and I mean, I don't think he has just a regular changeup. Actually, he threw a regular changeup back in 2018 and 2019, but he hasn't really thrown it much since. So we're talking about from 2020 to 2024, he really abandoned the changeup until, of course, this year. I mean, I think he's still trying to get a feel for it, Rob, to be honest. That's kind of what I can chalk that up to. And he hasn't really had much success with it either in what I'm looking at right here. Anyone can look at this, and I do get deep into these numbers to try to tell a story about why these guys might be doing certain things versus not. We know that Clay Holmes likes to rely on the fastball, predominantly his sinker, which has movement, inside to right-handed batters and away from lefties. His sweeper is his pretty much sharpest off-speed pitch right now, and he's throwing that for about 21.8%. And the changeup is coming in at number 3 of his overall pitch selection at 13.8%. So I think it's pretty on par with it being such a new pitch for him and a newly developed pitch, right? A revamped pitch, that I think that really, I don't think that he feels comfortable enough to make that his primary secondary pitch, if that makes sense. Like his primary off-speed pitch, which is still the sweeper, with great reason because it's very sharp. So opponents in this early season are hitting 333 off of that changeup, and they're hitting 462 off of his sinker. Guess what opponents are hitting off of his sweeper? 0. They're not hitting anything off the sweeper. They haven't touched the sweeper. So, yeah, I do think that it's just a little bit of confidence issues with that newly acquired pitch. And I think that we're going to start to see him utilize a little bit more as he gains more confidence with it. But until opponents can figure out the slider/sweeper combination, however you want to classify it, then I think he's going to continue to roll with that. For me, especially with the sinker that he throws for about 38% of the time, he needs to find command of that pitch. That's what has been his kryptonite early this season, because he has been getting into some counts where he's been trying to get that sinker over for strikes, but he simply can't locate it. And then he's working backwards and hoping to get a strike off of a 2-1 pitch, let's say, on his slider, or a 3-1 pitch off of his slider. It's kind of working in reverse in terms of what your overall game plan should be. Yeah. So, yeah, that's really the only thing that I can really say about Clay Holmes in terms of what I've assessed. But I think that he is due for a better start today, to be honest. And I think you have the Toronto Blue Jays
I
logo next
do. Yeah, somebody brought that up in the chat.
I was like,
Yeah,
that'll throw me off.
Hey, listen,
But
there can't be a pregame without mistakes, man. You got to know this. The Mets are winning. Why
I agree.
why make it perfect now? Like,
well, and the post game too, because I had a typo. I had a bad typo using one of the templates as well. My post game, I had to change it midstream a couple of days ago. But this is a matchup. This is a matchup that we saw in the first go around in Miami in that third game. Connor Gillespie actually kept the Mets hitters off balance pretty well outside of some first inning trouble, giving up an RBI double to Pete Alonso. So can the lineup figure out Connor Gillespie the second time through facing him? And can Clay Holmes really lock in and, like you said, provide the Mets length and try to establish that sinking fastball command to help him set up more success with that kick change? Because I don't think he's going to have much success with that kick change unless he starts locating that fastball and getting on top of the counts more often than not. I'm talking about getting ahead of hitters 0-1, 0-2, and then that way they can guess, is he throwing me another sinker? Is he throwing me the kick change? Or is he going to throw me that nasty sweeper that nobody else has figured out thus far? And it all starts with that sinking fastball. It all starts with that predominant pitch that he has. He hasn't figured it out just yet. We'll see if he does today.
Yeah. I mean, this is the difference between being a starter and being a bullpen guy. You're going to see a lineup second, possibly 3 times through the order. And you gotta adjust on the fly when hitters are adjusting to you. And I'm gonna give him a little bit of a break in Houston because that was a very good lineup. First out in it was opening day, completely understandable. And I gave him credit for what he did because he did limit the damage. But again, you faced a bad Marlins team your second time out. You weren't great by any means, and you're facing the same team again. This is the opportunity here where you should go. Like, because of the weather, it might be a little bit of an issue, maybe with certain grips. That's understandable, but there should be no reason why you give up no more than 2 runs. 2 runs or less is minimum. And give me 5 innings. Maybe you can get to the 6th inning, maybe 5 2/3. I'll take that. But I think he really needs to get it there. Somebody's got to do it other than Peterson. Get into the 6th inning. Like, somebody's got to do it. Like, I don't trust Senga to do it, to be quite honest with you. He still throws too many pitches. I think when he doesn't have that ghost fork, and he really didn't have it yesterday, and the weather sucked, but he had an issue with that, and he couldn't put away many of the guys. That hurt his pitch count for sure, even though they only took him out with 77 pitches, which kind of annoyed me.
They're being very, very cautious with him over the first 2 starts.
Like, could we put a pamper on him? Like, could we? Like, I mean, Jesus, like the guy can't get babied enough. Now, it's not many starts so far, so hopefully you got to put it. But come on, 77 pitches. That's a joke. It really is. Like, I understand, it was a close game. The bullpen has been outstanding, but if the bullpen would have actually, cracked a little bit and gave up some runs and we would have lost that game, that would have been talked about more, taking out Senga with 77 pitches. Even though he didn't have his great stuff, he was still shutting him down and putting zeros on the board. So let's go, Clay Holmes. I'm rooting for you. I still believe he's going to be out of this rotation by the end of the month. I still believe that, especially if Montas comes back very shortly in a couple of weeks, and most likely, and Minaya probably June. But I don't think Clay Holmes has that much time left in this rotation if he doesn't pick it up a little bit. So we shall see. But
I don't know about that, Rob. I think that's a bold take. I think he's going to be in this rotation for a lot more than that.
You better start throwing 5 innings, because this 4 and 4 in the third, man, you got to give a little bit of length. You really do. You really do it. And listen, you're facing this team again. And the Marlins did a great job yesterday adjusting, like you said, Chris, to the ghost fork and not really, basically laying off that pitch for the most part. And they put better at-bats together. So kudos to the Marlins for doing that. But come on, Clay. It's the Marlins. Like, there's about 4 guys everybody knows on this team by name. So let's do the job today. And I think the offense is gonna kick ass today. I think this is not gonna be a close game today. I think the offense is just gonna break out, because you're seeing a little bit more and more each game, guys that were struggling coming out of it. And I think the Mets are just gonna take off. And I think this is gonna be a blowout game today, to be quite honest with you.
I would love to come on the post-game stream between you and myself talking about a blowout victory. There's nothing more than I would love, for that to happen. Also, if you are not a part of my channel, I am doing another subscriber giveaway on my community tab. Comment who wins today's ball game between the Mets and Marlins and what the final score exactly is going to be. Comment it in the community tab post. If you're commenting in this live chat, it's not going to count. You have to go over to the community tab, hit the like button, comment, and enter a chance to win a sweet brand new Mets beanie that I was trying to give away on opening day if Mets fans would have guessed the opening day lineup correctly, but injuries kind of hindered that with Acuna getting the start, etc. So we're doing another giveaway. Hopefully somebody wins it because I really want to ship it to somebody. Make sure to participate. Little fun for this afternoon baseball game. So let's go Mets. That's really all I got. All eyes are on Clay Holmes, but I agree. I would love for this offense to really get going. And let's go get 6 in a row. That's all I got.
Sorry, I'm just typing. Sorry about that. All right, guys. So, let's get another win. Let's go for 6 in a row today, guys. Let's see if Clay Holmes got a 5th inning in him. That would be nice. I think this offense is ready to break out, and I can't wait to watch it. It's about, 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away until first pitch. Again, 7 p.m. game turned into a 4:10 p.m. game because of the cold weather. Who knew that baseball would change times more than cold weather than actual rain? That's amazing. I mean, Saturday and Sunday was terrible, but they didn't change the times once at CitiField. But, cold weather, God forbid, they're changing the times again. I like the schedule. It helps both of our schedules out, so we're happy about that. But, get a dome. I don't know what else to tell you. All right, guys. So thank you for tuning into the Amazing Mets pregame show. Clay Holmes, Connor Gillespie on the mound. Let's get that 6th win, and we'll see you on the postgame show. Have a good day. Enjoy the game, guys.
Let's go Mets.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets